I never thought I'd get nervous at a wedding, let alone because of the bartender. But here I am, standing by the punch bowl, trying not to spill my drink, while this guy behind the bar keeps locking eyes with me like it's some kind of secret code. It's weird because, honestly, I didn't think weddings were my thing. Too much small talk, awkward dancing, and people pretending to be happier than they really are. But this one? It's different. Mostly because of him. So, to back up a bit, my best friend Josh got married last weekend. Josh is one of those rare people who somehow manages to be both incredibly chill and the loudest guy in the room, which, if you know him, is a pretty impressive combo. He invited a decent number of people, and as usual, I was just tagging along because my social life is basically Josh's social life. I don't mind it. He's great company. But I was fully prepared to just be the guy in the corner, nursing a beer and dodging the endless, "When are you gonna settle down?" questions. The venue was this beautiful, rustic barn way out in the countryside, all fairy lights and wooden beams. Very picturesque, but also kind of intimidating if you're like me, and prefer places with good Wi-Fi and less hay. The ceremony was sweet. Josh looked genuinely happy, and the food was better than I expected. But nothing about the wedding stood out to me until I noticed the bartender. He was working the bar like a pro, mixing drinks with a kind of calm focus that made the whole scene feel a little less chaotic. He wasn't just slinging beers. He was crafting tool tales like an artist, and maybe that's why I noticed him. But then there was the staring. I caught him glancing over at me more than a few times, not in a creepy way, but in a way that made my heart do a weird flip. And when he caught me looking back, he just smiled, like he'd been waiting to say something, but didn't want to jump in just yet. I can't really explain it, but there was something magnetic about him. Maybe it was the way his eyes caught the light, or the way he seemed so genuinely present, like he was really paying attention to the people around him instead of just doing a job. He looked approachable, but also a little mysterious, like he had stories he wasn't telling. So there I was, standing alone with my drink, trying to act casual but totally aware that this guy was watching me. I kept telling myself, it's probably nothing. He's just doing his job. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. Otherwise, why keep looking? That's when Josh's sister nudged me and said, "Hey, the bartender's been staring at you all night. You should go talk to him." And that's when I realized, maybe this wedding was going to be a lot more interesting than I thought. I laughed it off at first, brushing her comment aside with a, "Yeah, right." But she gave me this look like she knew something I didn't, and that only made me more curious. So after one more round of awkward mingling and dodging the "so how's your love life" questions, I finally made my way to the bar. The guy was wiping down the counter when I slid onto the stool next to him. For a second, I just stared at him, trying to figure out how to start a conversation without sounding like a complete idiot. Honestly, my brain was doing cartwheels. "Hey," I said, keeping it casual. "So, do you work here often?" He looked up, and that smile was back, easy and real. "Only tonight, actually. Just temping for the event." His voice was smooth, maybe a little deeper than I expected, and it had this calm warmth that immediately put me at ease. I nodded. "Right on. I'm Kyle, by the way." "Lucas," he said, holding out his hand. When I shook it, his grip was firm but gentle, like he wasn't just going through the motions. We fell into an easy rhythm after that, talking about the wedding, the food, the music. It was all surprisingly natural. Lucas had this way of making everything feel less awkward, which, for a guy like me, was basically a superpower. He told me he was in town for a few weeks, just doing event bartending to make some extra cash before he headed back home. He didn't say where home was, and I didn't push. The more we talked, the more I noticed the little things. The way his eyes crinkled when he laughed, the way he absent-mindedly twisted a ring on his finger like it was a habit or maybe a nervous tic. I wanted to ask about it but held back, not wanting to get too personal too fast. At some point, the bar got busier, and Lucas had to step away to mix another drink. I watched him work for a moment, impressed by how effortlessly he handled the chaos. And then, out of nowhere, he caught my eye and winked, I nearly dropped my glass. I laughed, shaking my head like this was some crazy dream, but that wink was like a spark lighting something inside me. Suddenly, the barn felt less like a rustic backdrop and more like the setting for something I didn't quite understand yet, but definitely wanted to explore. As the night went on, I found myself circling back to the bar, not just for drinks, but because I wanted to be near him. I even caught myself pretending to check my phone, just to have an excuse to talk to him again. And every time, Lucas was there, with that same quiet intensity, like he was waiting for me to make the next move. At one point, Josh came over, clapping me on the back with his usual enthusiasm. "You're flirting with the bartender, man," he said with a grin. "I see it." I blushed, trying to play it cool, but Josh just laughed. "Go for it. You never know." Before I could think of a response, Lucas slid a drink across the bar to me, a whiskey sour, a little stronger than what I'd ordered. "For the company," he said with a shy smile. I took the glass, feeling the warmth of the liquor and the warmth of something else I couldn't quite name. I looked up, and our eyes met again, longer this time, like an unspoken question hanging in the air. And that was when the music shifted, the lights dimmed a little, and the first slow song started playing. Lucas glanced toward the dance floor, then back at me. "Would you like to dance?" My heart skipped a beat. Me, dancing in front of a crowd? The idea was terrifying and thrilling all at once. "Yeah," I said, surprising even myself. "I'd like that." He extended his hand, and I took it without hesitation. As we moved to the floor, everything else seemed to blur. The noise, the people, even the awkwardness I'd felt all night melted away. Just him and me, swaying slowly to the music. The kind of moment you want to freeze and keep forever. And in that moment, I realized this wedding wasn't just a celebration of Josh and his new life. For me, it was the start of something I never saw coming but desperately hoped would last. Our bodies moved slowly to the music, and I was hyper-aware of every little thing. His hand lightly gripping mine, the warmth radiating from his chest against mine, the faint scent of something woodsy and clean that I couldn't quite place but found incredibly comforting. It felt like we were alone in the middle of the crowded barn, like the rest of the world had just receded into the background and left us in this quiet bubble. Lucas's voice was soft as he spoke, almost hesitant. "You're a better dancer than I thought you'd be," I chuckled, trying to hide how nervous I actually felt. "Thanks. I'm not usually this brave." He smiled, and it wasn't just a polite smile. It was the kind of smile that held a little secret, something he wasn't quite ready to share but was inviting me to discover. We stayed on the dance floor longer than I expected, and when the song ended, no one else rushed to claim the space, so we just kept standing there, close enough that I could feel his breath on my neck. "Why were you staring at me all night?" I asked, finally breaking the silence. He looked a little surprised that I had brought it up, but didn't look away. "Because I didn't want to miss the chance to talk to you." I thought about it for hours before I actually did. That admission made my heart race in a way that was both thrilling and terrifying. I wasn't used to being the one noticed, especially not like this. Lucas took my hand again, leading me back to the bar, where he poured us each another drink. This time, I let him pick something for me, trusting his taste more than my own. As we talked, I learned more about him, how he'd moved around a lot growing up, never really settling in one place, how bartending was his way of meeting new people, hearing new stories, and maybe finding his own place in the world. He mentioned his plans to head back to a city on the coast soon, but there was a softness when he said it, like part of him wasn't sure he wanted to go. I found myself wanting to know everything about him, to be the person he trusted with his stories and secrets. The night went on, and the wedding started winding down. Couples were saying their goodbyes, friends were hugging, and the energy shifted from celebration to that bittersweet feeling you get when something good comes to an end. Lucas looked at his watch and sighed. "I should probably start cleaning up soon. Last call is in about 20 minutes. I nodded, feeling the weight of the evening settling in. "Yeah, I get it. But before you do that, can I see you again? Maybe after you're done here?" He hesitated for a moment, then smiled that same shy, genuine smile. "I'd like that." Josh came over just then, clapping me on the back again. "Looks like you found someone interesting, huh?" I grinned, not bothering to hide it this time. Yeah, and I'm not letting him get away. Lucas caught my eye one last time before he disappeared behind the bar to start cleaning up. I stayed by the punch bowl a little longer, feeling like the whole night had shifted on its axis. When the room was nearly empty and the music had softened to a quiet hum, Lucas came back over to me. Ready to close up. Yeah, I said, standing up. Want some help? He looked surprised but pleased. Sure, if you don't mind. We started clearing glasses and stacking chairs together, the silence between us comfortable, full of the kind of energy that settles when two people are figuring out what comes next. When we finished, I walked him to the entrance, the cool night air hitting us as we stepped outside. Thanks for tonight, Lucas said, his voice low but steady. I wasn't sure how it was going to go, but I'm glad I got to meet you. Me too, I said, feeling like I was about to take a chance on something real. So, can I see you again? Like, maybe for dinner or something? He smiled, that same smile that had me hooked from the start. I'd like that. He pulled out a small piece of paper from his pocket and scribbled his number on it. Text me when you get home. I took the paper, my fingers brushing his for just a moment longer than necessary, and nodded. Done. As he walked away, I realized I'd spent the entire night waiting for something unexpected. And now that it was here, I wasn't sure how to handle it. But one thing was clear. This wasn't just another wedding story. It was the beginning of something I never saw coming, and I was all in. The walk back to my car was a blur of adrenaline and warmth that I couldn't quite explain. The night air was crisp, but I felt like I was floating, like I'd just stepped into a new chapter of my life without even realizing it. In my pocket, Lucas's number felt like a tiny lifeline, a thread connecting me to something unexpected and exciting. I couldn't stop smiling as I pulled out my phone and shot him a quick text. Made it home safe. Thanks for tonight. It was simple, but I wanted him to know I wasn't just going to disappear. What surprised me most was how quickly he replied. Almost immediately, his message popped up. Glad to hear it. Can't wait to do it again. That simple exchange sent my heart into overdrive. I'd never been the type to jump at something so fast. But with Lucas, it felt right. Like he'd cracked open a door I didn't even know I wanted to walk through. The next day, I tried to focus on work, but my mind kept drifting back to him. The way his eyes lit up when he laughed. How his voice sounded when he talked about his dreams. Even that little nervous twist of his ring finger. I'd never believed in instant connections before, but this felt different. Real. By the time evening rolled around, I'd already sent him a message asking if he wanted to grab dinner. He agreed without hesitation, and I spent the next few hours trying to pick the perfect place. Eventually, I settled on a low-key local spot downtown that was known for good food and a relaxed vibe. Not too fancy, not too casual. The kind of place where talking was easy. When I arrived, Lucas was already there, sitting at a corner table with a casual, comfortable air. He stood up as I approached, and that smile, the one that had hooked me from the start, spread across his face like a sunrise. Hey, Kyle, he said, his voice warm and a little shy. Hey, Lucas, I replied, feeling my nerves settle just a bit. We ordered food, and as we talked, the conversation flowed naturally. We swapped stories about our childhoods, our families, and the weird little things that made us who we are. Lucas was honest about his wanderlust and his love for meeting new people, but there was also this vulnerability beneath it, a quiet hope that maybe he could find a place to belong. I told him about my own struggles with feeling like I was just drifting, not really settled anywhere, even in my own head. It was the kind of conversation you don't usually have with someone you just met, but with Lucas, it felt right. At one point, I caught him looking at me like he was seeing something he hadn't before, like he was trying to decide if I was real or just a dream. I reached across the table, brushing my hands softly against his, and he didn't pull away. Instead, he squeezed my fingers gently. That small touch sent a wave of warmth through me, and I realized I was already falling for him more than I'd expected. It wasn't just about the attraction or the thrill. It was about feeling seen, understood, and accepted. After dinner, we walked through the city streets, the lights casting a soft glow around us. Lucas reached for my hand, and this time I didn't hesitate to intertwine my fingers with his. We ended up at a little park, sitting on a bench under a canopy of trees. The night was quiet, except for the distant hum of traffic and the occasional chirp of crickets. "I'm glad you messaged me," Lucas said, looking up at the stars. "I wasn't sure if I should." I turned to him, my heart pounding. "Me too. I'm glad you didn't let me get away." He smiled, that shy, beautiful smile, and leaned in just a little. The moment stretched between us, electric, fragile, full of promise, and then, just as our lips were about to meet, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled away reluctantly and checked it. It was a message from Josh. "Dude, you've been MIA all night. Don't forget we're crashing at my place tomorrow." I chuckled, showing Lucas the screen. "Looks like I'm not off the hook yet." He laughed, the sound like music. "Guess we'll have to see each other again before you disappear on me." I nodded, feeling that same fluttering hope. "Definitely." Walking back to my car later, I realized that sometimes life surprises you in the most unexpected places. A wedding, a bar, a simple smile across the room. And sometimes, those surprises turn into something you didn't know you were waiting for. I didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, I was ready to find out. With Lucas by my side, maybe this crazy, beautiful, messy journey was just beginning. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of my phone buzzing on the nightstand. It was Lucas. Just a simple, "good morning," smiley face message. I smiled, feeling a strange kind of warmth spread through me even before I'd fully opened my eyes. It was weird, actually, how quickly he'd become this unexpected part of my routine, this little thread of light in the middle of an otherwise normal week. I was supposed to meet Josh later to help set up for some post-wedding brunch at his place, but I couldn't stop thinking about Lucas. The way he looked when he talked about his life, the softness in his eyes when he smiled, the way it felt like time slowed down when we were together. I ended up texting Lucas back, asking if he wanted to grab coffee before brunch. He was up for it, which was a relief. I didn't want this to be a one-time thing, not after last night. We met at this tiny, quirky cafe downtown, the kind where the baristas know your name and the coffee tastes like it was made just for you. Lucas was already there when I arrived, nursing a cup of black coffee and wearing that calm, easy smile. "Hey," I said, sliding into the seat across from him. "Hey yourself," he replied. "Glad you asked me out again." We talked about the wedding, how crazy it felt to meet like that, and Lucas admitted that he'd been nervous about making a good impression. I told him I felt the same way, which made him laugh. As we sipped our coffee, the conversation deepened. Lucas opened up about how bartending was a way to keep moving, to avoid getting stuck, but that maybe he was starting to realize he didn't want to run forever. He said it like it was both scary and hopeful, like admitting it was the first step. I shared some of my own fears about settling down and whether I was ready for something serious. It felt good, to be honest, to be vulnerable with someone who didn't judge or rush me. After a while, Lucas glanced at his watch and sighed. "I should probably get going soon. Need to help pack up the bar for the next event." I nodded, trying to hide how much I didn't want the morning to end. "Yeah, I get it. But maybe after you're done, we could hang out again. No pressure, just see where this goes." He smiled, that same shy but genuine smile. "I'd like that." We parted ways with a promise to text, and I walked to Josh's place, feeling a little lighter than I had in weeks. The brunch was a blur of laughter, greasy food, and Josh's usual loud antics. But even surrounded by friends and family, my mind kept drifting back to Lucas. I caught myself checking my phone every few minutes, hoping for a message. And then it came, a simple, "Hey, free tonight?" that made my heart leap. We ended up meeting at a little park near the waterfront, the city skyline glowing behind us as the sun set. We walked along the path, hands brushing, until Lucas hesitated. "Can I be honest about something?" he asked. "Always," I said, stopping to face him. He took a deep breath. "I'm not great at this. At starting something real. I've always been the guy people come to for a drink or a story, but never for this. I don't want to mess it up." I reached for his hand, holding it firmly. "Hey, none of us knows exactly what we're doing, but I'm willing to figure it out with you." He smiled, relief washing over his face. That means more than you know. From there, things started to feel real. We went on little adventures, late-night diner runs, museum visits, lazy Sunday mornings with coffee and quiet talks. Every moment built a kind of comfort I hadn't realized I was craving. But it wasn't all easy. There were moments when his restlessness showed, when the thought of moving on from bartending or leaving town weighed heavily on him. I could tell he was torn between the person he'd been and the person he might become. One night, after a long conversation that stretched past midnight, I asked him what he really wanted. He looked at me with honest eyes and whispered, "I want to stay with you, but I'm scared." I pulled him close, feeling the weight of his fears, and said, "We'll figure it out together. No rush, no pressure. Just us." It wasn't a perfect fairy tale, and I knew there would be challenges ahead, but with Lucas, it felt like the kind of story worth writing. And honestly, I was ready to see where it would take us. It was about a week into this slow, unfolding thing between Lucas and me when reality came knocking. Hard. We'd been spending almost every evening together, stealing moments here and there between my work and his bartending gigs. It felt like we were building something, a fragile, promising little world where fear could take a back seat for a while. But then, one night, he showed up at my apartment looking like the guy I'd first met at the wedding. The same calm exterior, but with that undercurrent of restlessness I'd been trying to ignore. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice low and serious. I nodded, heart skipping a beat. We sat across from each other on my couch, the quiet hum of the city outside filling the spaces between words. "I got a call today." He started, twisting the ring on his finger absent-mindedly. "They want me to move to a different city for a bartending job. It's a good opportunity, better pay, and it's for longer-term work." I kept my face neutral, but inside my stomach tightened. I'd known this was coming, the possibility that his transient lifestyle could pull him away. But hearing it out loud made it real. "So, what do you want to do?" I asked carefully, trying not to sound desperate. He shrugged, eyes fixed on his hands. "I don't know. Part of me wants to take it. It's practical, you know. But part of me doesn't want to leave. Especially not now." I reached out and took his hand, feeling the familiar warmth. "We don't have to figure it all out right now. We'll take it one step at a time." He looked up, a flicker of hope in his eyes. "That's what I want too, but I hate the idea of dragging you along or making you wait around." "Lucas," I said softly, "this isn't dragging me anywhere. I want to be with you, wherever that is. We'll make decisions as they come." He smiled, and for the first time in days, it felt like a weight lifted between us. The days that followed were filled with a strange mix of excitement and uncertainty. We talked about possibilities, about what life could look like if he stayed, if I moved, if we tried to make a long-distance thing work. None of it was easy, but none of it felt impossible either. One Saturday afternoon, we decided to take a break from all the heavy talk and just be no pressure, no future planning, just two people enjoying each other's company. We went to a local flea market, wandering between stalls of vintage records, handmade jewelry, and old books. Lucas found a battered leather journal and flipped through the pages. "I always wanted to keep a journal," he said. "Maybe start now." I grinned. "You should. Maybe write about this crazy thing we're doing." He laughed, the sound like sunlight breaking through clouds. "Yeah, maybe I will." As we sat on a bench eating greasy street food, I felt that same warmth I'd felt since the day we met. The kind of quiet certainty that whatever happened next, it was worth it. But life has a funny way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. About a week later, Lucas got a call, this time from his real home, miles away. His mom was sick, and they needed him to come back for a while. Nothing permanent, just a visit, but long enough to disrupt whatever fragile balance we'd found. He told me over dinner, his voice tight with emotion. "I don't want to leave you. I don't want you to go," I admitted, "but you have to be there for your family." He reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "I'll be back as soon as I can, and we'll figure out the rest when I get back." The night before he left, we sat on my couch, wrapped in a blanket, watching old movies neither of us really cared about. We didn't talk much. Sometimes words weren't necessary. When it was time for him to go, I walked him to my door, the chill of the night matching the ache in my chest. "Text me when you get there," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I will," he promised, and then pressed a soft kiss to my forehead. This isn't goodbye, and it wasn't. It was just another part of the story. Two people trying to find their way, holding on to hope even when the path wasn't clear. As I closed the door behind him, I realized that love, real love, wasn't about certainty or perfect timing. It was about choosing each other, again and again, even when it was hard. And I was ready to do just that. The weeks Lucas spent back home stretched longer than either of us expected. Our messages kept us tethered. Late-night texts, quick phone calls between his family obligations, snippets of daily life shared through photos and voice notes. It wasn't perfect, and some days the distance felt heavier than others. But even through the miles, I could feel that quiet thread between us holding strong. One evening, I was sitting by the window, nursing a cup of tea, when my phone buzzed. It was him, an unexpected video call. I answered, and there he was, a little worn from travel, but with that familiar, easy smile. "Hey," he said softly. "Hey," I replied, feeling a rush of warmth. "I'm heading back next week," he told me. "I'm done with everything here. I want to come home, to us." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "I've missed you." "Me too." He paused, then laughed a little, the way he does when he's trying to hide how much he's feeling. "I was scared, scared it wouldn't work, that the distance might break something." I shook my head, even though he couldn't see it. It didn't. We made it through because we wanted to, because we chose each other. When he got back, there was no big dramatic reunion, no movie scene kiss. Just a quiet evening at my place, cooking dinner together, talking about everything that happened and everything we hoped for. It felt real, like the kind of beginning that lasts. Over the next few months, we settled into a rhythm. Lucas found a bartending job nearby. We explored the city's hidden corners, and we built a life together one step at a time. There were ups and downs, compromises and adjustments, but through it all, the connection that first sparked at that wedding only grew stronger. One night, as we sat on the couch, Lucas reached over and took my hand. "Thank you," he said simply, "for staying, for believing in us." I squeezed his hand back. "Thank you for taking the chance." And in that moment, I realized something important. Love isn't about grand gestures or perfect timing. It's about showing up, day after day, choosing each other even when the path isn't clear. Looking back, I never expected a wedding bartender to change my life. But sometimes, the most unexpected moments lead us exactly where we're meant to be. And that's a story worth holding on to.